We will start with the approval of the agenda. City Clerk, are there any changes or amendments to the agenda?
No, there are no changes.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. City Clerk, can you conduct roll call?
Commissioner Ward,
Present?
Commissioner Barraza,
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Chair McCoy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We will now move on to the approval of the minutes. Are there any changes or amendments to the minutes from May 15th, 2023, or June 6th, 2023?
There are no changes.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Wait, before anyone, do I have to take them separately because they're two different meetings, or can I do them all together? Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. City Clerk, will you please conduct a roll call vote?
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Barraza,
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Chair McCoy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We will now move on to subcommittee reports. This item is a discussion item for the commission, and no public comments will be taken related to this item. Does the Cultural Arts Plan Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to this commission? I don't think anyone is here.
I think it's just me, and
Just you,
there
yeah.
isn't one.
Yeah, you're the one, okay. Does anyone from the Parks Master Plan Subcommittee have an update they would like to provide to this commission?
Madam Chair, we actually had a meeting recently, and the process is moving forward. And thanks to staff for listing on the agenda on future items coming up, and it has been identified as the fall of 2023 when this item will be finalized and will be coming back to the commission. In the meantime, the subcommittee is working on the technical update of the document. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to member reports and comments. As a reminder, this is a time for commission members to report anything they feel important for the public or commission to know, but is not a time for discussion. Commissioner Barraza, do you have any reports or comments?
No, Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Miller, do you have any reports or comments?
Nothing right now, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Dolan, do you have any reports or comments?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Cummings, do you have any reports or comments?
Well, I would like to mention that I attended the South Central Commission for AB 617 for
AB
Fresno.
617.
AB 617, actually this last week, and you also attended. And it was actually very informative on what steps are being taken to improve air quality in the AB 617 area of Fresno. And that includes tree planting, truck modifications, et cetera.
Yeah, vegetative barriers.
Yes.
All that. Truck reroute study. Yeah, so.
I just wanted to let the community know that that is happening. And Tree Fresno has actually been allocated $2 million, $1 million to build vegetative barriers to sort of prevent pollution particles from flowing into our neighborhoods, and then also $1 million for urban greening. So working with communities, engaging the work of Central California Environmental Justice Network to work with communities on working with homeowners to plant trees over the next 3 years.
Thank you. Well, I just want to mention the op-ed that was in the Fresno Bee from a high school student who attends Edison, who her desire is to have more parks built in South Fresno. She talked about the lack of parks, and she also talked about the benefits of parks and having a park close to her in her community. And I just wanted to highlight that because this is what Measure P is all about. When this campaign was ran, it was ran to improve the quality of our parks, to build new parks, to add money to our arts community, and to be able to get our children involved and also provide programming for our youths and our centers, and this is what, and our seniors, excuse me. So this is what Measure P is all about, and I'm just happy to be a part, sitting up here with all these wonderful people, and why we try to get this thing right here. So I just wanted to highlight that. I thought it was a very good piece. If you haven't read it, please read it. She spoke from her heart, and and it was just a good article, especially from a high school student who's very aware of the lack of access to parks and the conditions of our parks here in Fresno. Welcome, Dr. Apuda. Do you have any reports or comments for this commission? Okay, thank you. We will now move on to city administration and park staff reports and comments. Does anyone from the administration side have any reports or comments for the commission?
Thank you. TJ Miller, Assistant City Manager. I'd like to welcome Laura Ward to the commission. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to let everyone know that the city has a balanced adopted budget or approved budget effective last Thursday.
Thank you. Does anyone from the park staff have any reports or comments for the commission?
Commissioner McCoy, Aaron Aguirre, Parks Director, just wanted to, on the news that Assistant City Manager Miller just mentioned with the adopted budget, we do plan on bringing an item to the commission, probably sometime in August, to go through those budget highlights in the Parks Department, as well as a capital update. So just did want to mention that for upcoming meeting. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to unscheduled communication. Would any member of the public like to speak on any issues within the jurisdiction of this commission? You will have up to 3 minutes. If you would like to make a comment regarding any of the scheduled hearings, comments will be taken when each item is called. So come on up if you have comments. Do we have anyone online?
No, we have nobody online.
All right, we will now move on to discussion items. 11A, ID number 23-1034, Cultural Arts Plan Subcommittee Member Nomination by Chairperson. So according to Article 5, Section 1 of the Commission bylaws, the chairperson shall appoint such subcommittees of commission members. So that's me, huh? All right, so do I have any volunteers who would like to serve on the Cultural Arts Plan Subcommittee? You would? Okay. Do we have any objection from the rest of our commissioners? No? All right, Dr. Apuda, you approved. That was easy. Thank you.
I would also like to volunteer.
We have one vacancy, correct?
We actually have 2.
2? Okay,
Correct.
so there you go. Thank you. Look, first day here, and you're already volunteering for stuff. We're going to get along just fine. All right, so now we can move on to the next item. ID number 23-1034. To establish a timeline for the Cultural Arts Subcommittee to complete their review of all comments received and revise the Cultural Arts Plan accordingly and present an update draft for PRAC consideration at the July 17, 2023 meeting. Would a member of the Parks Department please begin the presentation?
While Bernard's getting it up, good evening, Chair McCoy, fellow commissioners. My name is Drew Wilson. I'm a program manager in the Parks Department. I'm going to be giving you the presentation this evening. Good? All right. Helps when you turn it on, right? All right, so just a brief agenda. All of you have received a majority of this or all of this information on the memo we sent to the commission on June 19th. This is going to be a review of that and making sure we're presenting it in public. So we're going to talk about the Measure P ordinance requirements, review of the comments we received on the Culture Arts Plan, suggested updated timeline, and some proposed next steps. So do brief recap of the Measure P ordinance as it pertains to the Cultural Arts Plan. The language itself is very prescriptive. It states that the commission shall work in partnership with the Fresno Arts Council and local artists and cultural stakeholders to develop a cultural arts plan for all of the city of Fresno. We have to make sure it identifies the needs of the artist, prioritizes the outcomes and investments, and develops a vision and goals. So this must be completed prior to any grant program. So this is an instrumental stage in the process. So we want to make sure that we're aware of what we have to complete. I want to talk about the comments that we received. So we're very happy with the number we got. We got over 1,700 comments in total. The plan was released on May 15th. 20-day comment period closed on June 5th. And coming from past experience of public outreach and engagement processes, 1,700 comments is awesome. From a statistical standpoint, it is fantastic. So we got 108 from the Fresno Arts Council and Cultural Arts Plan Subcommittee, 14 when we had our public hearing on May 30th, 238 we received online, and we got 1,300 comments that were collected. Those were physical comments by our contracted outreach partners, and I'd like to give some appreciation to our staff and interns who inputted all of those. As you can imagine, it's a lot to put those down in a matrix. So appreciate that. And thank you to the residents of the city of Fresno for coming out and commenting on this plan. Now I'm going to do a timeline update. We have shown this to you before. We've been in the Parks Department. As you can see, the process started in May of 2022, and it continued until we got to June 20th when we had a plan that was released for the public. So that plan has been released, and those next steps there from June of 2023 through August, I'm going to go in kind of detail of what our proposed next steps and timelines are. But as you can see, we're still on track to hit that August adoption date. So I'd say let's jump into it. First and foremost, we've already checked one off the list. So our next steps would be this evening to appoint 2 commissioners to the Cultural Plan Subcommittee, and that has been completed. Next, this evening, we would propose that if the commission agrees to this proposal, that all motions by the commission as a whole are made on directions for the subcommittee for how they should approach this process, and then also confirm the timeline. So we are looking for you all to make a motion and adopt that. The proposal would be that the Fresno Arts Council and the Cultural Arts Plan Subcommittee, they meet together to update the plan. So if it is requested for the Parks Department to be available to facilitate the meetings, we're happy to provide some administrative report. This comes from us hearing and listening and making the suggestions we've heard from public comment and from the commission to allow all the comments to be reviewed by the subcommittee and the Fresno Arts Council to make the suggested edits. So they would do that, and they would look at all the documents that have been designed to date, all the comments, and make those modifications at their subcommittee meetings that they would need to schedule, or we could assist with scheduling. So that would happen, again, from June 27th, tomorrow, or June 27th through July 13th. That July 13th is key, and you'll see on the next slide. So the July 14th, the Fresno Arts Council and the subcommittee would submit an updated red line copy that would allow staff to put it on the agenda or give it to the clerk's department so that it could be agendized and heard at the July 17th PRAC meeting. So the Fresno Arts Council, along with the subcommittee, would make a presentation on their suggested modifications to the plan. Again, this would come based off of any motions you made tonight, and it would be your job as a commission to make a recommendation to city council for them to approve it. I do want to point out there, the July 18th through July 31st, seeing that this is a public document that will go out and eventually be adopted by city council or potentially adopted, we do have a process that requires our city attorney's office to have a legal review. So there's a 10-day review process in there. That's standard. Any document we take through, they have to review to make sure it's legally sound. And then that would put us on track for an August 10th date at City Council. And this, again, the Cultural Arts Plan Subcommittee and Fresno Arts Council would be presented to City Council at that time for their consideration. I want to be key here that the language I'm using, obviously we're going towards the position to getting it adopted, but we have to say, this is all for consideration. So it's got to go through its appropriate legislative process, and that's what we've lined out tonight. So that's our proposal. That's what I have for this evening, and staff's available for questions.
Thank you, Drew, for that presentation. Do any commission members have any questions regarding this item?
I do, if it's okay. Hey, Drew, can you go back to the slide, if it's okay, I'm sorry, because I see you take that down. Could you go back to the slide that refers to the ordinance?
Yeah. That's 4, Bernard. There you go.
So I just want to understand the language. What is this subparagraph B that is referred to there in that first line?
So correct me if I'm wrong, subparagraph B is for the funding allocation that could be spent for arts and culture within the Measure P ordinance.
So it's my perception, having sat up here for a while and listened to Fresno Art Council come forward with comments and everything else, that at least from some perspectives, they have not been working in partnership with us thus far. And it sounds to me, looking at what you showed in the other slides, they're just being brought in for review of everything now, essentially. Am I misperceiving that?
Based off of what I've heard, I would say that's not completely accurate. Again, I wasn't here, but they've been involved and they were on the subcommittee.
Okay.
Aaron, if you want to provide any additional context.
Is that right, Aaron? I'm sorry.
Correct. They were on the subcommittee with Commissioners Miller, Parks, and Vang at the time.
And commissioners here, okay.
Correct.
Right. Okay. It seemed like there was a lot of concern on the part of the Arts Council that they had not been brought into the process or were somehow being kept away from the process. And I note that they're coming in now, but it's fairly late. I mean, we're at beginning of July, and this is going to be done in August. So I just wanted to make sure that I understood that timeline. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
You have the floor, Commissioner Barraza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to make a couple of observations. One, in regard to the funding sources that are available for this category, I think it would be good, and I guess that applies to the subcommittee and the council that will be working on this, if we had better information on what gets funded by the 12% that has a very direct relationship to nonprofits. And then there is money other places under Measure P that can be used for arts-related stuff, even like to maintain existing facilities, all kinds of possibilities. But it gets very confusing for the reader not to know why the plan, the draft, throws a lot of stuff into the 12% that really doesn't belong there. So I just make this observation to those folks that are going to be working on that. I also want to point out that I think staff did a wonderful job in seeking out input from the community. We have a lot of good information, and I think it's reassuring to the public that all of the comments have been gathered, compiled, and are being incorporated or are being examined. And that's a tremendous task for the subcommittee and the council as they continue to work together. So in regard to identifying the needs, and in the report you have live music, 53%, visual arts, 46%, cultural events, celebrations, 42%, dance performance, 27%. It does a good job of assessing the needs, but it doesn't do a good job of identifying the future, the visionary, what do you call it, the vision of the projects and programs that are there to come. And in the ordinance, it says what's important is prioritizing outcomes and investments. I put a question mark under investments because you don't talk at all about how resources are going to be expended and what priorities are being set, and something more specific about what exactly art has very many components, whether it's visual, musical, performance, I mean, all kinds of possibilities. For the average reader, you want to simplify it and tell the public what is it that you're going to be investing, and whether it's a percentage of the 12% pot or something more specific than what we have that really doesn't say anything. It just says very nicely, we'll make an effort to provide better access to the public, to the arts, the cultural arts and all that. And also there is a sentence in the ordinance that talks about that vision and goals has to take into consideration the cultural, demographics, and geographic diversity of the community. At this point, I feel that there has to be a better job done for incorporating events that have, ethnic groups or any cultural stuff, because I don't see it. Southeast Fresno, I'm sorry, I just say it automatically. The city of Fresno has a Latino population of 50%. I would want to see something that stands out that's part of that 50%, and I don't see it. So I just thought it would be, and I'm talking about all ethnic groups, not only Latinos, but I happen to be Latino, so I'm a little bit more aware of those cultural opportunities. So since this is our chance to kind of offer comments, I thought I'd kind of give you a little bit of initial reaction to it, because the work of the subcommittee is coming back to us, and I know we'll have another opportunity to take a look at it. And so I think the subcommittee is getting to a very important task, and we welcome their work, but I just wanted to point out some concerns I have from what I see in the current draft. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Dr. Apuda?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Drew, for the presentation. I have a couple of things. One, I want to also speak to Commissioner Dolan's question. My understanding was that the concern was not so much about what's the Fresno Arts Council's involvement thus far, but their involvement moving forward. So can we speak to that a little bit for me? If I'm correct, that was the concerns I was hearing from citizens several months ago.
Right, so Council adopted a resolution, and we are working on an agreement that we will enter into with the Fresno Arts Council for the completion of this, as well as the guidelines. So we expect to have that. We have the outline. Those meetings will occur here shortly. So now that we're through budget, we have that document and expect to have those meetings in the upcoming weeks. I don't know, TJ, if there's anything you want to add.
Thank you, Aaron. The other question I have, just looking at, we have a very short timeline between now and July 14th. And we've heard citizens express concerns in the past about not getting documents ahead of time to look at them. And I see that we're looking at getting the document by the 14th to the city clerk so that the commission can consider recommendations on the 17th. Can you talk to me a little bit about how the updated document will be getting out to the community? Will they have a chance to look at that before the meeting on the 17th?
Yeah, so all items considered by the commission have to be agendized and posted for the public, and the clerk's office is in charge of that. So once it came back to the Parks Department, it'd be distributed to the clerk's office, who would then post the agenda within a link that would allow the public to review it.
So we're talking about 3 days?
It is a tight timeline, yeah.
I guess I'm asking, are there any, I'm thinking about what we've heard citizens say.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any ways, even if it's in advance, saying to citizens, this is going to be out on this date, look for it, it's coming? You understand what I'm saying?
Sure, Dr. Puda, we can definitely have that kind of advance notice. We'll work with the subcommittee to kind of see what their progress looks like. Because at the same time, we understand this is a tight timeline and there's a lot of work that's going into it. One of the other options would be a special meeting prior to the 14th, but again, that's going to be dependent on the subcommittee and kind of the progress made. I don't want to speak for the subcommittee. I know we're all busy, but just some options that are out there. But we can definitely communicate that and kind of in conjunction with the subcommittee, kind of anticipated release date and have it ready to go.
Thank you. I think that again, I'm just trying to address the concerns I've heard from citizens, and I think that would be a good way to do that, to start giving people a heads up this is coming. So then at least they're alerted, even though they, based on where we are, only have a short time frame. Thank you.
Commissioner Ward? Thank you.
Thank you. I've spent a lot of time looking at the calendar. I think that the proposed timeline is the best that can be done to get this out quickly so it can be approved and adopted in the appropriate manner. I agree with Commissioner Barraza's concerns. I think one of the recommendations as the subcommittee and the Arts Council reviews changes to the cultural arts plan will be around how to incorporate some of the Measure P language, especially its specific investment priorities, and ties in elements related to the grant making, which is entirely unclear in the original draft document. And then also, I wanted to encourage the Arts Council and the Arts Subcommittee on a parallel track for when they are reviewing revisions to the cultural arts timeline, arts plan, to also work on developing the guidelines associated with the granting program. Because of when the meetings are held, if both of those can be presented to this commission on the 17th of July for consideration and adoption, they can be recommended for adoption by the City Council on August 10th. That will allow for a fall RFP and grant making process. Because the meetings are so spread out throughout the summer months, if it's delayed further, the timeline for actually making grants to local art organizations and nonprofits is going to be much further delayed. And what we've been hearing so much from the community is the great financial needs, especially amplified by the impacts of COVID-19.
Yeah. Any other questions? Commissioner Singh, you have the floor.
So while I was reviewing the cultural arts draft plan, I had a few concerns that I wanted to bring up in today's meeting. So I'm not sure if that should be now or during the next item.
Commissioner Singh, I'd recommend now. I think that's what this item,
Okay.
City Attorney, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, now's appropriate time.
Sounds good, thank you. So one of my first concerns was that not a single Central Unified school or West Area school, west of 99, held an event where there was some sort of option or for residents or community members to provide input. The reason I'm saying this is a little personal because most of the Punjabi community resides west of 99, northwest of 99. And so we saw very little kind of input there, right? Just because the whole kind of school district was not even included within the participatory process. Second, in the cultural arts draft plan, we were provided an ethnic, zip code, and income breakdown of participants. Is it possible to see the numbers of surveys that were taken in languages other than English?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that would be very helpful. And then also, I'm a little concerned that the Punjabi community is paid lip service with a few words in the report. But when we're actually talking with Punjabi-led organizations within Fresno. Not a single one was actually interviewed for their input for, regarding the cultural arts draft plan. So I want to know, how are you kind of getting information regarding, what cultural art means to, a very significant portion of the community here in Fresno. I saw something written in the report saying, like, example, Langar Seva, which is like, which has nothing to do with this, to be honest. So I don't know who kind of put that in there, or who actually kind of, which people were talked to when it comes to, actually including the Punjabi community's input into this plan. But that would be helpful to know.
So Commissioner Singh, Jennifer Solis will come up and she can answer kind of how we got to the locations, how partners were picked for interviews and so forth.
Yeah, thanks so much. Jennifer Solis, Senior Management Analyst in the Parks Department. Been working on the Cultural Arts Plan since May and have presented a couple times to the Commission. We did also, we'll be happy to send you those numbers. They were on a previous presentation.
Can you send it to the whole commission?
Yeah, sure, of course. Those numbers, as far as the language, you were asking how many took in each language. Those, I believe, were on a previous presentation from one of our previous PRAC meetings, but I'll be happy to resend those numbers as well. We did also a lot of outreach. We worked with our Office of Community Affairs to work within the Punjabi community. We had outreach at churches. We also posted in all 4 languages, English, Spanish, Hmong, and Punjabi in Central Unified, which is west of the 99, essentially majority of it. We did also talk about some of the in-depth interviews, which was a piece of our outreach efforts. We presented that at the commission quite a bit of times as well, and took into consideration a couple recommendations. Dr. Puda made some recommendations, and we were able to reach out to additional participants for those in-depth interviews or those little more detailed pieces. It was a multi-pronged approach, so we did, in-depth interviews, survey. We did community meetings. We had one at Edison, which was north of 99.
But that's not part of Central Unified, though, right?
I'm sorry?
I believe that's not part of Central Unified.
That is not correct. Okay. But the way we did reach out through Peach Jar and was sent to, the flyers were sent regarding the survey and community meetings on Peach Jar with Central Unified, which pushed it out to all of their schools within the school district. We were really proud of our outreach effort and feel like we definitely did our best to provide that outreach. But we will, as far as the language and the surveys, Punjabi had, I want to say 6, if I could remember correctly off the top of my head, that took it in that language.
Was the same outreach strategies done across the board? Done the same
yes.
across the board?
Correct, yes. We've presented a lot of times to the commission about the outreach efforts, but we were really proud of the outreach efforts that we made for this plan in particular. We got a huge number of responses on our surveys, and I think it continues with our public outreach comments and the number we received with that as well.
Was any outreach done to CBOs that work particularly with Punjabi citizens or residents, just like CBOs that work particularly with African American citizens? What type of outreach was done with that?
Yeah, sure. We reached out to...
Because I think that's what Commissioner Singh is trying to get at. There were no contacts with the CBOs that particularly work with Punjabi residents, like Chakara Movement, for example.
Sure.
They work with Punjabi residents, so they would have been off the top of my head to reach out to them.
Sure, we certainly reached out to our entire network. We asked the commission to also help, spread the word, which we did get quite a bit of feedback as well. Like I mentioned, we worked with our Office of Community Affairs, who does work in particular with those groups, and they were also helpful in pushing those efforts as well.
And would like to add, we did meet with each council member for their recommendations as well.
Okay.
So one recurring kind of theme I've seen is that it's not a bad thing either, right? Where we reach out to the OCA because they're super integral to, I guess, kind of the link between the city and the community, but they aren't the only link. So my only recommendation moving forward is that the city staff take it upon themselves and not rely just on the Office of Community Affairs to reach out to the community, to reach out to CBOs, whether it be Jakarta Movement, whether it be Sikh Women Association, or there's many other Punjabi-led organizations in Fresno, and to kind of put that onus on whether it be the commission here or the OCA is a little kind of disappointing in the matter, just because I know that if you're saying that there's only 6 responses from the Punjabi community in Punjabi, like I could easily get more than that just by one day of going to not a church, the Gurdwara, on a Sunday, right? So I feel like that kind of, sorry, what's the word? Like the push really wasn't there. But also just one of my other main concerns is that within the cultural arts draft plan, it seems that, I had said this before, it seems that our community is just kind of paid lip service time and time again when every sort of report. I don't see any sort of meaningful component when it comes to cultural arts and the Punjabi community, anything that's tying in both. So yeah, I would like to see that kind of further revised.
Thank you. Just to clarify though, really quickly, that number was the number of responses in Punjabi. That doesn't necessarily represent the number, and we can share those numbers as far as the demographics that we did receive through the survey, which we definitely doesn't represent just that. That was just the number of surveys taken in that language, so just to clarify.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. We will now move on to hearings. ID number 23-1037, hearing to receive public input on allocations related to Measure P, updates to the Parks Master Plan and Cultural Arts Plan.
Excuse me, Chair McCoy. I don't believe a motion was made.
It didn't say take a vote, so I have to make.
Sorry.
Okay, do I have a motion? It doesn't require? Yeah, it's a discussion item.
If they want to proceed with the timeline, they need to vote on it? Yeah.
Okay, so do I have a motion to adopt the timeline as presented?
I so move.
Thank you, Commissioner Ward. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Barraza. City Clerk, can you take a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Kucharski,
Yes.
Commissioner Barraza,
Yes.
Commissioner Singh,
Abstain.
Commissioner Cummings,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Apuda,
Yes.
Vice Chair Dolan,
Yes.
Chair McCoy.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Now can we move on to hearings? Okay. ID number 23-1037, hearing to receive public input on allocations related to Measure P, updates to the Parks Master Plan and Cultural Arts Plan, and annual Parks Department budget and capital improvement plans. Would any member of the public like to provide a comment regarding this item? You will have up to 3 minutes for comments. Thank you. Can I have Lilia Gonzalez Chavez to the podium, please? You will have up to 3 minutes.
Good evening, members of the commission. Welcome, Commissioner Ward. So happy to see you at the dais. I just wanted to say thank you to the administration for hearing all of the comments that were made at previous meetings regarding inclusion of the Arts Council in this process moving forward. Commissioner Dolan, your question was very appropriate in that we, the Arts Council, and the Commission Committee were not actively involved in the preparation of the plan up to now. We were named as a committee, but the participation was minimal. So I just wanted to clarify that. But moving forward, I'm excited about the possibility and the fact that we will be bringing to you a plan that I hope responds to all of your concerns. But I also want to make it clear that the plan is a big picture of arts and the cultural arts in our community. What will be much more specific and will help to identify how the resources will be distributed in an equitable manner will come with the guidelines. But it is our intent that as the committee and the Arts Council work together in the development of those guidelines, that we bring those to you as a commission to review first before they're forwarded for any other community input and or council review, because it's important for us moving forward that you clearly understand all the steps and all the manners of engagement that will be necessary to bring all of the community into this process and to ensure that this process is viewed as equitable and accessible to everyone. And the funds, even in the guidelines, will not specifically identify projects in terms of if we're going to support Jacara dance or if we're going to support ballet folklorico. The guidelines will identify how all of the community can access the resources, and they will introduce the programs that they want to produce. So I just wanted to say that moving forward, and also, again, thank you for your role and for hearing the community through this process up to now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jose Luis Barraza.
Let me reiterate that once more. Jose Luis Barraza. I'm a lifetime resident of Fresno. I'm an artist in the area of performing arts. I've been a lifetime in this community waiting for something like this. One of the people I thought about as I was listening to Ms. Chavez was an elderly lady named Maybelle Solon, who actually started what they called the Fresno Arts Alliance, which is today the Fresno Arts Council. And like Maybelle, like Ms. Chavez, we know the importance of what this council represents, but more importantly, what Measure P represents. It is for us in the arts community a measure that gives us leverage. And when I say leverage, I'm speaking about other sources of funds that we can receive, because now we have at the local level, because that's how other sources look at us, do we have the support of your community in this? And today we can say, yes, we do. We certainly do. Prior to Measure P, there were other existing organizations that were in the arts, in the profession, many dissipated, mainly because of that inability to survive without the funds that were necessary to be as creative as possible. So CEFCITA, which I represent as the CEO for the organization, we recognize the importance for the residents of Southeast Fresno to be very much part of this, so much part of it that we've been on top of this as it relates to the surveys that we did in the community on behalf of the Parks and Recreation Department, because we wanted input, not only because that we're a very diverse community, but we have a lot of culture and arts in the community that have a drive to want to be part of this. We have arts in the community that's part of the Magnet School of the Performing Arts at Roosevelt. We have a tremendous amount of talent, and we want to make certain that we are participating from the very start to ensure that our residents, our community, get part of that measure into that area so that they can be as creative as possible. With that, we thank you for supporting this plan. We thank you for looking at the Arts Council as a wonderful organization that can bring this forth to a great start in the community. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Next, we have Hugo Morales. Please come up to the podium.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for serving. My name is Hugo Morales, and I'm the co-founder of Radio Bilingüe, the National Latino Public Radio Network, based here in Fresno. I'm raising several areas not adequately addressed in the draft of the Cultural Arts Plan, and I will refer to it as the CAP, in order to be in adherence with the Measure P intent and language. In referring to Measure P, Section 7-1506, Expenditure Plan for Expanded Access to Arts and Culture. Section A states 12% of the funds made available from Section 7-1504 shall be made available in an annual basis to invest in competitive grants to nonprofit organizations that support and expand access to arts and cultural programming. Recommendation, create a section in the CAP, the Cultural Arts Plan, that reflects Section A language as a #1 priority recommendation and as the only area of the CAP eligible for Measure P funding. The guidelines should be part of the Cultural Arts Plan. Section B states, grants funded pursuant to this paragraph should be implemented by the Commission in partnership with the Fresno Arts Council or its successor local arts agency, using multiple solicitations that allow for a diverse set of programs and different program sizes and reach, including core operating and project support grants to be funded. The Commission shall ensure that grant applications are reviewed in a transparent, competitive process. Recommendation 2, reflect the stated role of the Commission in partnership with the Fresno Arts Council to implement the grant-making process in the CAP. Next, Section C states, prior to the implementation, subparagraph B, the Commission shall work in partnership with the Fresno Arts Council and local arts and cultural stakeholders to develop a cultural arts plan for the city of Fresno that would identify needs in the arts and cultural community, prioritize outcomes and investments, and develop a vision and goals for the future of Fresno arts and cultural arts programs that are reflective of the cultural, demographic, and geographic diversity of Fresno. This process shall include a robust community engagement process, including multiple public meetings. The cultural arts plan shall be and should be updated every 5 years by the commission. Recommendation 3, ensure that the CAP prioritizes outcomes and investments that are reflective of the demographic diversity of Fresno. Is my time up, or do I
Yes,
still?
sir.
Okay.
You can wrap up.
A minute? Okay. The draft plan does not do this, and we look to you to correct this oversight by specifying that the majority of the Measure P arts funds reflect the overall 74% of the Fresno population, which is Black, Indigenous, people of color, including the Punjab community, with a total population of 30% living in poverty. Next, Section D states,
Can you wrap it up?
okay.
Thank you.
Funding for the operating support distributed pursuant to this paragraph should support organization stability for arts and culture program organizations that reflect the cultural, geographic, and demographic diversity of the city of Fresno, and reflect the proportion of each grantee's overall operation that serves residents within or visitors to the city of Fresno's sphere of influence. And so, lastly, grants funded pursuant to this paragraph shall be, this is Section E, shall prioritize organizations and programs that support and expand diverse public or youth engagement and equity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morales. Next speaker we have is Keith, and I do not want to butcher your last name.
Hi, I'm Keith Seaman.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for allowing the Fresno Arts Council to take its rightful seat at the table. That's a great stride forward. There are some questions that Mr. Barraza, Committee Member Barraza, posted that I wanted to address with regard to the vagueness of the funding. The way I see it, there is no vagueness in the cultural arts 12%. The 12% is to go to grant funding, not to the administration of grant funding, not to consultants to come up with a plan for those grant distributions. The 12% is strictly for those grants. Anything else comes out of the other portion of the pile. The other thing I want to address is, do we know where the monies are going to go for those cultural arts grants? We won't know until the grant proposals come in. Those will define where the money is going to go. We can encourage people to write grants. We can, and we should make a very thorough outreach so that everybody knows what those monies are for and what the opportunities are. But do we know where those are going to go? We will only know when we get those grants. So we need to get those grant proposals going as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Amy Kitchener. Please come up to the podium. You have 3 minutes, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Amy Kitchener. I'm the founding executive director of the Alliance for California Traditional Arts. We're a $5 million arts and cultural organization based in Fresno. And I just want to really commend the members of the commission who have spoken about some of the concerns that I also share that I've brought up at other meetings, specifically that the Measure P language is so incredibly clear about the cultural arts plan purpose, the role of the Fresno Arts Council, the role of this commission, and also at the center of this is really a vision about cultural and racial equity in the funding of the 12%. And you know, one of the really wonderful things about Fresno is our diversity. I think that the implications for the cultural arts plan is recognizing that we do not have the arts and cultural infrastructure we need as a city, as diverse as Fresno, and that these funds need to really represent what is culturally relevant to all the people of Fresno. So I work with living cultural heritage across the state, and I just want to really encourage that we get very specific in the cultural plan about cultural equity. Also that in the guidelines, that be made part of the cultural art plan, as Commissioner Ward was suggesting, that also really needs to be part of the public process and be reviewed very carefully by this commission and be accessible to the public. I'd also like to request respectfully that the public comments that have already been submitted to inform the draft plan be shared publicly. Finally, I just want to also emphasize the need for oversight about the grant funding. And I came here in 1993 from LA to work in arts and culture. And it was around the time that the old Arts to Zoo had passed, and it ran for a few years, and it was a big sales tax. But it was overturned because of a lawsuit with Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, and it was deemed that it was taxation without representation. And so we have to be very, very careful in this time around that we do everything by the book and that we have the appropriate city council approval, the commission approval, and oversight over everything that happens with this funding. So thank you so much for your responsibility and your work on this.
Thank you. Do we have any members online wanting to make a comment?
There are no comments online.
Thank you. I will now close public comment. Does any member of the commission have questions or comments regarding this item?
Chair McCoy, somebody just raised their hand if you want to take it.
Somebody just raised their hand? Okay, go for it.
Okay. We have Pedro Navarro Cruz.
Hello, sorry about that. I thought I had my hand up, but thank you for allowing me to speak today. Welcome aboard, Commissioner Ward. My name is Pedro Navarro Cruz. I am a District 3 resident. Today, I'm calling in particular to request for the PrAC Commission to invite the U.S. Soccer Foundation as a future presenter. In particular, I think it would be beneficial for the PrAC Commission to learn about the Safe Places initiative that the U.S. Soccer Foundation is leading nationwide, where they're helping resurface and build new futsal courts throughout the country. As we learned recently, Lynn Williams, who is a Central Valley resident, a Boulder High grad, she was called up to the women's national team. A couple weeks ago, we had Lionel Messi, who's arguably the greatest soccer player in the world ever, joined Miami FC and Major League Soccer here in the United States. And overall, the soccer in the area and throughout the country has been very underserved, especially in the time of budget cuts, where our parks are now deteriorating. I know through Measure P, we're trying to build that, but I really do feel that the U.S. Soccer Foundation has a great project, and it can be complemented and cost multiplied here locally with Measure P funds. So I do have some contacts there, so I don't know what would be the proper avenue to get in contact with them, but I'd be willing to share those contacts. But yeah, that's all I wanted to share today. Thank you all.
Thank you. Any other person online?
There are no more.
And before I close public comment for real this time, does anyone in the audience like to make a comment? No? Okay, I will now close public comment. Does any member of the commission have any questions or comments regarding this item? Commissioner Barraza?
Madam Chair, I wanted to request that once the agreement is completed or negotiated with the Fresno Arts Council, that we, this commission, get a copy of that agreement, just so that we're well informed. And I know that that's going to happen soon. And also, obviously, the guidelines for the filing of grant proposals, I'm sure this commission will have a lot to do in reviewing that document. And we definitely have to encourage projects, or I mean, I know that it was pointed out that once the guidelines are identified, then there'll be all kinds of projects. But I think we want to encourage people to file projects. And by that means informing the public of what's possible and not necessarily restrict anybody. I mean, to the extent we can, but also I think it's useful to set priorities. What are the, and we'll discuss this under the guidelines as to what's important to this commission as we represent also sectors of our communities. So, and we'll discuss that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? No? All right. Well, it is 6:35, and I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you to the people in the public for coming to the meeting. Thank you to my commissioners for making it to the meeting, and you guys have a great evening. Thanks.